halachas of Tshuva, the tribe Bez Hashem. Let's start with the halachas of Ben Adam L'Makayim. Obviously, these are the days of Tshuva. People forget. Rav Pam Zichron Levracha, our Rebbe, used to say that Rosh Hashanah is the first day of the Aseret Yimei Tshuva. People forget that. Avada, maybe it's a different type of Tshuva. Perhaps the Tshuva of Rosh Hashanah is coming to a deeper understanding of a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And perhaps once you have that relationship with the Heilige Bashefer, so then Memela, he'll feel perhaps the guilt and the pain for having given perhaps Agmas Nefesh to the Heilige Bashefer. Kivyachol. But nonetheless, these are days that we have to be Oisik and Tshuva. Tichsam Sefer, he says something that you really can't tell anybody until Mamish, the last days of Elul, where we're holding now already I'm able to tell it to us. Tichsam Sefer says there was once a person, he was running and he fell into a lion's den. And the lion's den, on his way down, it was all over, these hungry lions, and they're ready to eat. And Tichsam Sefer, he says that this person quickly reached out, and he reached out to a bush, and he was holding on for his dear life. And he was pulling himself up, and out came a little bunny rabbit, a little cute one, not so cute when you're hanging onto a bush. And he started to nibble at the bush. And slowly, he was about to lose his grip, so he quickly grabbed the next bush. Again, the bunny rabbit came, Canera, there weren't enough carrots around, and he started to nibble at the next bush. Finally, this fellow reached for the last bush, grabbed up at the bush, and he looked at the Heilige Bashefer and he said, Rebbeinu Shalom, this is my last chance. If he eats this bush, I'm done with, Rebbeinu Shalom. Some Sefer Elul is 30 bushes. 30 bushes, Rabbi Yisai. We're holding now in the last week of bushes, Rabbi Yisai. About 5 more bushes, maybe almost 5 bushes left that we have, Rabbi Yisai. Metafarein chapen in Tshuva and Maisen Toivim. What we're doing over here today to come together like we do every day. I come every once a week. Mitvach, to come together to learn the Rebbeinu Shalom's Heilige Torah, the Lulei Torah Shashui, and this matziv that we created, b'dafka from a matziv of Avadati Ba'onyi, a matziv that was created out of the tsar that the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted to see how are they going to produce in a matziv of pain and a matziv of tsar and a matziv of suffering. And how did we produce? We produced a Lulei Torah Shashui. How we learn together and we learn the Heilige Torah and we come together every week. What a simcha and nachas. This isn't shemayim and there's no shaila. This will be for us a great schus on the Yom Adin. So let's get together, come to learn first the halachas of tshuva. Let's talk on a more halachic sense and see what it is that's incumbent upon us. The truth is, in the Heintige Parsha, we're going to say, V'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha, v'shamata b'koilai, ki koila she'anochi mitzavcha yoim atu v'necha, it seems to be a pasuk mefreshes in the Torah. V'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha. Chiyuv to do tshuva is a mefresh pasuk in the Torah. So the shaila is there a chiyuv to do tshuva? It sounds like an interesting shaila. The pasuk says v'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha. Is the pasuk telling us you have a chiyuv to do tshuva? What's the shaila? Comes again the Heilige Rambam right away. Onei Hilchos tshuva, the first halacha in Hilchos tshuva. Rambam perek aleph halacha aleph. Kol mitzvahs shebat Torah. Any mitzvah in the Torah, bein asay, bein lois asay. This Rambam is a packed Rambam. Whether you do an asay, whether you do a lois asay, if you're over on the avera, bein bezadain, asay b'shoigeg, kishiyase tshuva. When you do tshuva, says the Rambam, this is the Seder Advarim of how you do tshuva, and the Rambam goes on to teach you how to do vidui, etc. The chinuch also in Shin Tamach Daled, nitztavenu litzvadais. We were told to do vidui. When a person comes to do tshuva, we're told to how a seder advarim how to do tshuva. For example, a person wants to have kosher meat. There's no chiyuv to have kosher meat. There's no chiyuv there's chiyuv to have kosher meat if you're having meat. But when you come to have meat, this is the seder of how you make it kosher. Go learn Masech Chulin. I'm sure by us in that good, we're going to get there also, Mitzvah Shem, one day. So if you want to have kosher meat, this is how you have kosher meat. If you want to do tshuva, the Rambam tells you this is the seder of how to do tshuva. You do vidui, charata, etc. But the Rambam doesn't say there's a chiyuv to do tshuva. Says the Minchas Chinuch and Mitzvah Shin Samach Daled Tzidkot and Beis. From the Rambam, it sounds like kishi yasu tshuva, mavur the ain't a tshuva mitzvah to say. It's mashma that there's no chiyuv to go and do a mitzvah of tshuva. Like because of mitzvahs say, like the Rambam writes in many places, the Rambam doesn't say mitzvahs say to do this, mitzvahs say, we know everywhere the Rambam says mitzvahs say lamol, mitzvahs say to take a lulav. Over here, the Rambam doesn't say mitzvahs say to do tshuva. The Rambam says, when you come to do tshuva, this is the seder of how to do tshuva. It sounds like the Rambam holds, there's no chiyuv to go and do tshuva. But if you don't do tshuva, you're going to get punished. But if you want to know, is there a chiyuv to do tshuva? It sounds like from the Heilige Rambam that there's no chiyuv to do tshuva. Okay, comes again, the Ramban in the Heintige Parsha, in Dvarim, Perek Lamed, Pasuk Beis, and the Ramban says not like that. V'shavta ad Hashem lekech v'shemaita b'koila. So the Heilige Ramban, Zok the Ramban, Kasha also, shetashiv el Hashem b'chol nafshecha, b'chol levavcha, v'tikabel alecha, v'al banecha, l'doyrasam lases k'kol asher noichim mitzavcha yoin. Explains the Shar Tshuva a little bit more elaborate than the Rabbeinu Yoina in Shar Daled, Oisid Zayin. Says the Rabbeinu Yoina, even though we are chayiv at all time to do tshuva. You did an avera, you spoke lashon hara, you have to do tshuva right then and there. You did an avera in Kislev, in Tammuz, the second you do the avera, it's mutal on you, incumbent upon you to go and do tshuva. Says the Rabbeinu Yoina, the Shar Tshuva. Yeah, of course, there's a chiyav naisef on Yom Kippur. There's more of a chiyuv maybe when it comes to Yom Kippur, because it says in the pasuk Lifnei Hashem Titaru, but it says mefurish in the Rabbeinu Yoina in the Sforno, and really this is what it says in the Aruch HaShulchan. Mitzvahs asay, Aruch HaShulchan's in Tafresh Beis Sif Aleph. Mitzvahs asay lashav kol ish michatov. A person has a chiyuv to be chayzer from tshuva from his avedus. The Kol Mishnah Torah, Kol Nevi'im, his Arel Tshuva, the entire Sefer Navi, the Ganze Tanakh, and all the Nevi'im and everything is filled with the Chiyuv to go into Tshuva. So it sounds like a very extreme machlekes. The Rambam says there's no Chiyuv to do Tshuva. If you want to do Tshuva, there's a Seder of how to do Tshuva. And the Ramban, the Sforno, the Shar Tshuva Rabbeinu Yoina, the Aruch HaShulchan Halacha, they all say that there's a chiyuv to do tshuva. It sounds like a very, very extreme machlekes. Let's see if we can make this machlekes a little bit smaller. The Rambam in Tshuva, Perek Beis, Halacha Zayin says, wait a minute, even I agree that one time there's a chiyuv to do tshuva. Comes again the Rambam, and it says, Yom Kippur, who's man tshuva l'kol yachad the Rambam. There's one time the Rambam agrees there's a chiyuv to do tshuva. Yom Kippur, v'keitz mechila v'slicha Yisrael, v'fika chayiv lases, chayav in hakol lases tshuva b'yom Kippur. Now already the Rambam does agree that there's a chiyuv to do tshuva. Rambam's sheet is that there's a chiyuv to do tshuva not the second you do an avera. There's a chiyuv to do tshuva on Yom Kippur. Okay. Also interesting, the Rabbeinu Yoina, and if you look in the Mishnah Berurah, he speaks it out clear. Says the Mishnah Berurah, wait a minute, even though I hold like Rabbeinu Yoina that you're chayiv to do tshuva the second you do the avera, but there's an ending time. Like as if to say, the starting time of when you're supposed to do tshuva is the second you did the avera. When's the ending time of when I'm supposed to be doing tshuva for that avera? Says the Mishnah Berurah, based on the Rabbeinu Yoina, the ending time is Yom Kippur, Erev Yom Kippur actually. That shar Yemois Shana, you're chayiv to be mefayis if you did something wrong. But if you didn't have time to do it, so aval be'erev Yom Kippur, mechuyev l'saken hakol. Today there's a din of Lifnei Hashem Titaru, ki b'yom hazeh yichaper aleichem. You have to come into Yom Kippur clean. So the machlekes just got a lot smaller. The Rambam holds that you're not chayiv to do a tshuva the second you do the avera, but you're chayiv to do a tshuva on Yom Kippur, maybe Erev Yom Kippur, you're chayiv. The Rambam says Yom Kippur actually. The Mishnah Berurah and the other poskim, they hold that you are chayiv to do tshuva immediately, but it's not the pshat that you have to do it that second, and you were mevatel the mitzvah of tshuva if you didn't do it that second. When were you mevatel a mitzvah of not doing tshuva? At the ending time. By Yom Kippur, you have to have done tshuva. So it comes out, according to the Rambam, you have to do tshuva by Yom Kippur. But it sounds like you didn't have to do tshuva in the start. According to the Mishnah Berurah, now the machlek is a little bit smaller. You have to start at least to try to do tshuva in the beginning. You're mechuyev to do, but your ending time is that you have until Yom Kippur, Erev Yom Kippur, to do tshuva, and if not, then you were mevatel this mitzvah. But let's see if we can make the machlek is a little bit smaller. A little bit smaller. There's a Chafetz Chaim in the Kutei Amorim in Perek Beis. The Chafetz Chaim says, you should know, he says, unbelievable thing. Gamze yadu el kol ish v'ish. This safe nitztarech lasos tshuva. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the Chafetz Chaim, who's today's yahrzeit is our Rebbe, the Heilige Chafetz Chaim. Says our Rebbe, you should know you're going to have to do tshuva. And parsha tshuva asid l'skai. You know yourself you're going to do tshuva. Says the Mishnah Berurah. And if you push off doing tshuva, you'll give a din asidin anachli din al ze gufa shicharis tshuva. Mishnah Berurah says, if you have a chiyuv to do tshuva and you know you're going to wind up doing tshuva and you're going to have to do tshuva before your nifta, you have to do tshuva, before Yom Kippur, you have to do tshuva, and you know you have to do tshuva and you push off doing tshuva, says the Mishnah Berurah, the Chafetz Chaim, he says you're going to give a din v'cheshbon for pushing off the tshuva. Sakti Chafetz Chaim, what's the raya? How do you know? Maybe you're not going to give a din v'cheshbon. I'll push off tshuva, but I'll do tshuva later. He says he has unbelievable raya. It's an incredible thing. The Gemara says, why do Gerim have problems? We know that the Gerim have problems. That's how you affect the Gemara. They're such good people. They came to Kanfei Ashchina, and they're such good people. So why do they have so much tzaras? So he says an unbelievable thing. The Gemara says that they were ma'achar this guy because they pushed off being Megayer. That's what the Gemara says. So the Chafetz Chaim asked the obvious kasha: is there any place in the world that it says that a ger is chayiv to become a ger? A goy is mechayiv to become a ger? Where does it say that there's a chayiv for this goy to become a ger? That we have a tain on him that he did not become a ger. So the Chafetz Chaim says an unbelievable thing. I mean, all he has to do is be mechayiv the sheva mitzvahs b'nei noyach. Says the Chafetz Chaim, you see, if this ger became a ger, it must be as seichel hayosher. It must be he's a person, he's a thinking person. And he decided to come under Tachas Kanfei Ashchina. And he realized, Hakol, Nivra, Tzarech Lahaker, the boyroi like Avram Avinu. So then why did you push it off? Zok the Chafetz Chaim, Hala, you had the ability to be Megayer B'koidim, and you didn't. And it took a couple of years. I don't think he means sometimes in the bureaucracy that goes on. He means you pushed it off. So therefore, you're going to get punished. The ger gets punished. Says the Chafetz Chaim Kavachleimer. You are already Tachas Kanfei Ashchina, and you know you're going to have to do tshuva. So if you push off doing tshuva, you're going to get punished for pushing it off. Comes out of Merdi Gezach. It comes out the Machlekes is very small. Machlekes is, according to the Rambam, should you do tshuva? You better do tshuva immediately, because if you know basoif that you're going to actually do tshuva, if you know basoif that you're actually going to do tshuva, Rabbi Isai, so then if you're pushing it off, you're going to get punished for not doing tshuva earlier. So according to the Rabbeinu Yoina, you're chayiv to do tshuva immediately. And according to the Rambam, you're not chayiv, but you better do tshuva immediately, or you're going to get punished. The ending time, according to everybody, the Rambam holds you must do tshuva on Yom Kippur, and the Mishnah Berurah says you must do tshuva by Erev Yom Kippur because you have to come in clean. So I would say the machlekes is not so big. What's an nafkamina? I guess the nafkamina is that what happens if a person spoke Lashon Hara or something, or all the things that we have to do tshuva on, etc. I guess on the Chafetz Chaim's Yartzeit we'll say he spoke Lashon Hara, and now he decides, he just didn't wind up getting to do tshuva. He planned on doing tshuva, he didn't wind up getting to do tshuva. And now he dies, Chalila, before Rosh Hashanah. He dies before Yom Kippur. According to the Rambam, he was not over on the Isser of not doing tshuva. Avadi was over on the Isser of Shmiras HaLashon, of Lashon Hara, and he's going to get punished for Lashon Hara. But he wasn't over on the Aveira of not doing tshuva. Masha'enkin, according to the Rabbeinu Yonim, the Mishnah Berurah is Psak La'alacha, since the Chiyuv started miyad, so then if he goes up to Shemayim and he didn't do tshuva, they're going to say to you, why didn't you do tshuva? You were mechuyev to do tshuva, so you're going to get an Aveira for Lashon Hara, and you're going to get an Aveira also for not having done tshuva. So that's what Baisa is number one. What's the Psak Halacha? The Psak Halacha is like the Mishnah Berurah, Rebbe, and the Shulchan Paskins like this also in Tafresh Vav, Sivkat Aleph, Sivkat Beis, excuse me. That Bam is because Hashanah you must do tshuva and not leave it afterward. Interesting. In the Aruch HaShulchan, I'm a little bit mesupik because the lashon of the Aruch HaShulchan is that to me yodeya mayulad yoy. It sounds like from the Aruch HaShulchan maybe Taki is with Nachas that he's going with the Rambam like this mahalach that we're saying. You know why you have to do tshuva? Because who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen? Now, I don't know. I think the Rambam means, I think the Aruch HaShulchan means the other thing we were saying. Who knows what will happen, and maybe he'll die in the middle of the year. And if he dies in the middle of the year, he will not have done tshuva. So number one, he'll be over on Shmiras HaLashon. And also number two, he'll also be over on not having done tshuva. So that's what Rabbi say, Psak Halacha, do tshuva. That's number one. Number two, everybody knows, certainly every yeshiva bacher knows this. Every yeshiva bacher under the age of 20 for sure knows this. Us old men, Rabbi say, we begin to forget this. Everybody knows there's something about 20 years old. It's only about 20 years old. You don't get punished till you're 20 years old. The truth is, it comes from a Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Peites, right? It comes from The Gemara says over there that Yitzchak made a whole cheshbon of how he could take the averas of the Klal Yisrael on his shoulders, because he says until the age of 20, it sounds like there is some type of a thing that until the age of 20, there might not be an einish. And this is very intriguing. We know that, of course, I tell my Talmidim that under the age of 20, they better do tshuva. So what's this about that until the age of 20? What's this thing about that 20 years old, until 20 years old, you don't have to tshuva? We know bar mitzvah is chayiv and kol terakula. So the Neidim Yehuda in Yeridei Kuf Samach Dalid, he says, Loi mistaber shelo yeshum oynish shemayim. It's not mistaber that there's no oynish shemayim until 20 years old, and the world is hefker, and Yiratzeh Chises Esreyehu. And I already know when is a person, one of the most crimes that the person does in his teenage years. What? He's going to go and kill people. So he says, Pshat, the Neidim Yehuda says, Uladaiti akavana shebe'olam hazeh ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu oynish bechayev. We know that the person, for the averas that he does, he's going to get punished in this world, obviously. So Mamela, on that we say that if he's until the age of 20, he does an avera, he won't get punished in this world. He better do tshuva on his side, because he's going to get punished in the next world. That's no question. But he won't get punished in this world. That's the chiddush of the Neidim Yehuda. The Chacham Tzvi in Siman Memtes, he says it a little bit, slightly different, right? He says that maybe there's an oynish. I'll read you his lashon. He starts out like the Neidim Yehuda. The Hainu, till I'm dating midor midbar. Hainu le'inyan oynish. The Dor midbar didn't get punished until from the age before 20. He says the Hainu le'inyan oynish oilam hazeh. Ava ba'oilam haba yesh lav oynish kares. Like a zaken ben shmeinim shana she'achol as a chaylev. Shlei tachin boy loy kares the shani v'loy diyomi. Akoch yesh lekaim boy kares elo oilam haba. Now, he asks a kasha. A person that's 70 years old and he eats chaylev and he gets kares. So what kind of kares are you going to give him? He can't get kares of dying before he's 50 or dying without children. He's already 70 years old and he's got to go into mishpacha. So he says, don't worry, he'll get it in the next world. Says the Chacham Tzvi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to wait to give him his punishment. It's a little bit different than the Neidim Yehuda. He'll get a punishment after the age of 20. Avada, im yashiv v'lo yechrisena, im yechlid. Obviously, it's a lot easier to do tshuva. It's like the mashal of Rav Shimshon Pincus. They have this big caravan, and they're, when it's in the air, it's very easy. You have two Arabs, and they're able to maneuver it. But once it hits the ground and it's in the wrong spot, oh, how difficult it is to maneuver it. You can't maneuver it now. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kivyachol, until the age of 20, the averas, they hover, and they're not a load on you. And therefore, he's not going to get punished, and therefore it's easier to do tshuva. But if he didn't do tshuva from the age of 20, he said the Chacham Tzvi, he's going to certainly get punished. That's how you have to, they once asked for Shlomo Zalman. They have all these Yerushalayim schools. You go to a pidgin aben, it's like pei dalet taneis. He says, what's the pshat? The guy, he's got or you go to a pigeon, some say he goes to Bris Milah, it's Michael all Averis. What does it mean? He's Michael all the Averis. No, he's there, he's Michael. It means that at that second, says Rosh Zalman, because Baruch Hu lifts any of these scholars that it takes away all the Averis. It means Hashem, that moment, he lifts up all the Averis. And they're not on you. That second you do tshuva, they won't get back down. And it's much easier when they're lifted. Kivyachol. Another teretz says some sefer under 20. He says he says under the age of 20, you don't get punished on averas that were nischadesh lefi shah. He means avada, a person's mechal Shabbos, avada arayis, anything, all the averas, shatnez, nevela, avada until the age of 20, avada is getting punished. But there were averas that were nischadesh in the door of midbar. Right, the Chet HaEgel and the oinshim that were neschadish for those dairis. Now, he brings a raya that Eitel Sari Menu Kivyachol, her seichel, it says Kibaz Zayin is Kibaz Kuf. Ayin Sham. These are the terutzim. But Al Kapanim the Chavetz Yair, and that's what we'll end this part with in Siman Kuf Samach Vav. Ha'amnam b'davar shaloi mefurish klal azara mitzvah rak yesh lilmed misvara. Things that a person gets punished that from seichel he's supposed to know. So then maybe until 20 he doesn't have that full seichel. Those is Rabbi Yisai number 1 and 2. Number 1 is do tshuva. Don't wait until the last moment on Yom Kippur. And the Rambam is anyways going to make you do tshuva on Yom Kippur. Number two is, it's not going to help you if you're under 20 years old. So you could tell the kids today, even you guys have to do tshuva. Under 20 years old, it'll help him maybe to not get punished until the age of 20. Maybe it'll help him to not get punished until he gets to Olam Haba. Maybe it'll help him to not get punished for things that are sichliistic things, but that which state in the version of the Torah and the Chazal, he's going to get punished for, and therefore he must do tshuva. Next, Rabbi Yisai, the Rambam, these words of the Heilige Rambam. The Rambam says you have to do tshuva on shoygeg, on mezid, on asay, on loisasay. What about oinus? Do we say oinus rechmana badre? So you don't have to do tshuva if you didn't have avera b'oinus. And that's Rabbi Yisai is the Maran Rottenberg, and it's brought down the halacha and the Ramah and Simekut Behesi Dalid. He brings a lady was Mishamish. She didn't have to expect that she would be a nida, and she was Pyrus nida in the middle. And the Maran Rottenberg says Ein Sarah Kapara. And the Heilige Rama brings down the halacha. She's an Einus. She didn't have to check. She didn't have to think. And she's Ein Sarah Kapara. Like he, like who. So you see over here, you don't have to do tshuva on an Einus. Comes again the Panamiris. In Chelik Beis and Siman he's talking about somebody that wound up eating treif because they weren't baidik, one of the things that it's not Aaron Haga to be baidik for. And then afterward, they found out that Taki ate treif. They found that, let's say we don't check if there's a hole in the krum of the brain. And they found out afterward that there was a hole in the krum of the brain and that the animal is treif. But we don't check for that. Says the Panamiris, he's allowed to be saimich on the chazakas, on the roives, and therefore he's an oinus gomer, and he doesn't need a kapara. He doesn't need a kapara. I'm not talking about what we spoke about last week, that a person that has to eat on Yom Kippur, he doesn't need a kapara. Chalila to have kapara for that. That's a mitzvah. He's eating and he's being mekayim the mitzvah v'chaybam. Not talking about that. But Akapanim in Oinus does not need a kapara. And the chayra, it's a dvarim pshutim. The Chalkas Yankiv Rebraish in Orchaim Siman Tazayin, he discusses a person that bought tefillin and it was bought by a Sefer Mumche, not like some Rabbanut Ramallah or Chveisnish, some guy that was selling a pair of shoes and tefillin. He bought it from a Sefer Mumche, and then he found out afterward that the tefillin were puzzled. Sometimes as they're going in, they were cracked. Or sometimes there was somebody not erlich involved, and instead of putting in tefillin, they put in schnitzel. But he did everything he's supposed to do. He went to a person who was an erlich person, and he bought tefillin, and he was never mekayim tefillin in his life. The Chalkas Yankiv says he's an oinus ein sarach kapara, doesn't need kapara. The Shevet Levi in Chelik Tesim and Tesvav, he says he did the maisim of putting on tefillin every day. He's a chishav lasais mitzvah, v'loy alsa biyada. It's keilu asah, like he wore tefillin. So what's the obvious kasha? Come on, Rabbi Yisai. What's the kasha every one of us has when you hear this? The koinus doesn't need kapara. So everybody here has the kasha. No, I'm waiting for the chat this time. No, what's the kasha? No, that's a lamdish kasha. Maybe we'll get to that also. But what's the kasha, Rabbi Yisai? The kasha is we're all going to clap al chait. Shechatanu lefanecha be'oines u'beratzin. What are you clapping al chait? Shechatanu. It's not enough what we have to clap al chait for. That you're going to clap al chait shechatanu lefanecha be'oines u'beratzin. What's the oines? You don't have to do tshuva for an oines. So there is a Beis David in Siman Taf Lamed Zayin. He says, yeah. You have to do tshuva sometimes for Einus. It's talking about a case where they put the gun to the guy's head and they told him to kill and they told him to boil a rayis and to do avodah zarah. So in that case, he's not over on avodah zarah. He's not over on Ritzicha. He's not over on boil a rayis because he's Einus. But he did an avera that he wasn't allowed to do this because he had to give up his life. It's called Einus. It's called Einus. And the Rambam says, we don't kill him if he did one of these averas because he's an Einus. But he wasn't allowed to do it, so he was over on not giving up his life for this avera. So there is a case, theoretically, that a person would have to do tshuva for Einus, but it's difficult, Rabbi Yisai, that pshat, because it's a very rare case. And to say that we're clapping and it's mamish, the first al-chet shechatanu v'necha b'Einus, in the first words, and we're saying al-chet shechatanu b'Einus on something that's kimat never negeya, so a grace of chiddush is das. Grace of chiddush. So what else could we say? So the Maisa, come on. Everybody here has got an art scroll. Gemara has an art scroll. Machzer. What does it say in the art scroll? I think you all know. In the art scroll, it says, means, ich bin an Eines. Like the Yidden that gave up they gave up Shabbos because they had to work on Shabbos. So, my Zayda and many of the people sitting here, their Zaydas, they didn't come to work on Saturday. And Mamela, they were told on Sunday, here's the pink slip. And those were the sukkah decorations, the pink slips. No, so somehow they were able to do it and other people weren't able to do it. So what's that? You ask the guy, no, come on, this person's able to do it. How come you're not able to do it? He says, I'm an oinus. What do you want from me? So not every, maybe it means in the sprach, in the vernacular of mention, of inzera, maybe that's the pshat. But there's a little bit more of a psalomdish pshat over here that we'll see based on a very, very big shaila. A very big shaila. The chayra, there's a kasha. The chayra, everything that you just heard, it should shock you. We don't have to do tshuva on oinus. I mean, it makes sense. It's not my fault. Why should I have to do tshuva? It's that sheni. We should be shocked. There's a Mishnah in Trumas, which is not just a Mishnah in Trumas. It's Kimat the Psukim in the Torah. The Mishnah in Trumas in Perek Ches, Mishnah Aleph says, and it's brought in the Rambam in Hilchos Shraga, is Perek Yigim, Halacha Aleph, the Isha that ate Truma, and they told her, she's an Eishes Kayan, and they told her, your husband died, right? She didn't know. She had every right to eat Truma. She's an Oynis Gomer Mamish 100%, right? Or Amrla Meis Bailech, or Vikena Eved. We'll skip this actually, one moment. Right? So it says here, Mechayiv Karen V'chaimish. She has to bring a Karen V'chaimish. Chaimish is a kapara. Comes again to Rambam, even stronger. Let's say, Hoiru Bezdin. The whole Harius, Rabbi Isaac, took him in the Torah. The entire Harius is a stira to this question. What's Harius, Rabbi Isaac? Harius was the Bezdin gets up and says that everybody has to eat this chaylev. This chaylev is not chaylev. It's shuman. It's kosher. What happens? The Bezdin basket wrong. And now everybody ate this chaylev. The lacha is they all have to bring, the shvatim have to bring a one big chatis. Why? What's going on? And why do the people have to bring? Or if it depends if it was based on the shvatim or the yichidim did it, but the Bezdin told them this is kosher. Rabbi Isai, I have a question. You go to the Bezdin, they tell you this is the Bezdin Agadol, Rabbi Isai, the Lishkas Agazis. The Bezdin tells you this meat is kosher. It's not nevela. It's not chaylev. It's shuman. You tell the Bezdin, I'm going to be frummer than you. I'm not going to listen to you. They tell you, what are you, a zakin mamre? We're going to take you up and flog you. And if you say another word, we're going to kill you. What are you, a zakin mamre? We're the Bezdin. We're telling you it's kosher and go eat it. Rabbi say, did he have a right to eat it? I've had the other right to eat it. Whatever the rabbi say, you have to listen to. No. So yet he has to bring a korban chatis. Why does he have to bring a korban chatis? Hare oinus is potter. Hare oinus is potter. Comes again the Noida Yehuda in the 96th tshuva. Dibra Maskal Amias Daiti. He brings this question. He says in Yeridayas and in Kupei, the Ram Rattenberg says that an oinus doesn't have to do tshuva. So fact that Noida Yehuda Pele Lama Yischayid Ayochid when the Bezdin made a mistake. Even if the Bezdin says your right is your left, when you're on a video camera, it's better, right? This is my right hand, but you guys are seeing my left hand. So, so on a video camera, you can understand this. They're looking at it from their direction, and the direction of the Gedalim is much bigger. So, but let's say that's the case, that they actually made a mistake. No. So the guy governor, you have to bring a korban. What's going on here? How in the world do I have to bring a korban? I did nothing wrong. I'm an oinus gomer mamish, the biggest oinus in the world. So what's the pshat? The Noida Yehuda says here an unbelievable chiddush. He says that when something comes based on a toyis, it's based on a toyis Bezdin. That's the ikar lashon of the Noida Yehuda. He says when something comes al yedei a toyis based on a Bezdin, maybe I'll read you the lashon over here. He says, he doesn't just say based on a toyis of Bezdin. He says when something comes based on a toyis, it's a Bezdin made a mistake. Lekach mechshev shkaga. El shemazu kol Yisrael. That's a different story. But if you do something based on a toyis, very hard, Rabbi Isai. Comes again the Mishnah Halachos and Chelek in the first tshuva there. He says after I kiss his feet, but leizachisi lahavin. What is this? Lama? What's the nafkamina if you're an oinus based on their mistake? Like as if to say that if they made a mistake, there was a mistake in the velt, and there's a shkaga, and you're like Kil Yachal, the shliach of bringing for that mistake. But It's very difficult. Very, very difficult. There's a Divrei Chaim in Yoredei Chelik Beis in Siman Tamaches, and he seems to say a svara that maybe in these cases, maybe they should have waited. And there was Efshel Avarer. They should have waited. So therefore, it's not so much of an oinus. It's also a very big chiddush. An incredible chiddush is this. The Aruch HaShulchan makes a different type of chilik in Yoredei Siman Kupei Heisiv Chabeis. Sarch Loimar the Loyam Rinam Bekorban Svarazu. The Mai Havale Lamebed is an oinus. Ela bedavar shu muchrach latzes. K'may bekan. Arei chayiv l'kayim oina. He says it's different by the case of the husband and wife. He's mechuyev to be having oina, to be having tashmish. So he's getting a mitzvah. So there we say he's an oinus. Mashen came by the meat. So there, who asked you to eat? Mashen came, but he's also talking about the case of Yavamis, Nisis al pi Edim. There also, when a woman gets married based on Edim, so the halacha is she has to bring a korban. Even though she did absolutely nothing wrong. There were two Edim that told her to do it. But he says, but who asked her to get married? So if there's no chi of pushing you to get married, so then that's considered a shoygig. Who asked you to do this? Mashiach, if you have to do it, then that's called an oinus. Interesting. Grace of Chedushim. Grace of Chedushim. Very difficult. What should I tell you, Rabbi Yisai? The only thing I can tell you is maybe we could think of something else. Comes again the Chasam Sofer, and he's talking about something else. In Yeridea, in Siman Kufnun Hey, at the end over there, he's discussing, we know that there's halacha, that a person was niskavin lechol baser chazer. He wanted to eat treif, and it came out kosher. He needs a kapara. Hashem yislach lo, we all know that. He needs a kapara. Okay? What about the other way around? He wanted to do a davar mutter, and it came out an avera. Right? Do we say niskavin lechol tle v'achol chazer? So there's some Sefer, very interesting. He says, "Echad man potter be'oifen shekasafti." He says an unbelievable thing. He says, even in the case of the Ramah, that the Ramah says that they were mishamish shaloi b'shas vesta, and it's not their fault that there was dam nida, and the Ramah says you don't need a kapara. He says you still need somewhat of a kapara. He says you don't need like a korban chatis type of kapara. But an avera still came to you, like a gather of nisgalgalin, nisgalgalin. Akash Baruch Hu doesn't bring to the tzaddik something that he obviously megalgalin. We always say megalgalin toiv to a tzaddik over here. If it came to a rasha, if it came to you, it must be the some that you're a rasha chalila, but it must be the some siba why the avera was nisgalgal to you, and this is why. Maybe, I mean, the Panamiris is first not like this. The Panamiris in Siman Mem Aleph that we quoted before, he says you don't need any tshuva when you ate the treif, it's not your fault, bichlal, etc., etc. But here, obviously, if the avera came through your hands, says some Sefer, it means that there's obviously some shmek that you deserve this avera. Maybe that's the pshat. If the avera came to me, so why did it come to me? It didn't come to that tzaddik, some other tzaddik. So maybe that's the pshat. If it came to you, so then it must be, even if you're an oinus, but that I did other averas kanir that brought it on myself, this ruach of avera that even an oinus happened by myself. Takala bali yadai, like we find in Chazal. So this Abaisai is l'chayra. The first part has the Helik Rambam. You need to do a tshuva, bein on shoygeg, bein on mezeh, but not on oinus. And we explained that you don't need a kapara on oinus like the Panamiris. But maybe epis, a small epis, something, klape, if an avera came to you, a takala bali yodcha, so then maybe you need a epis of something, some type of a form of avera, some type of a form of a tshuva. What about, the Rambam's lashon is asay, and the Rambam says, lois asay, and he says shoygig and mezid. What about a drabanan? Do you have to do tshuva on drabanans? Kipshutai, avada, there's no shaila on a mezid drabanan that one must do tshuva. So anyways, he's not listening to the Chachamim. He's over on a pasuk in the Torah of Leisasser. So for sure, we would have to do tshuva. That's no shaila. Shaila is, what about a shoygig d'Rabbanan? Does a person have to do tshuva on a shoygig d'Rabbanan? So it's very interesting. There's a Rambam, which is brought la'locha in the Shulchan Aruch in two places, actually. The Shulchan Aruch brings it in Yardei Kuf Yutes Sif Gimel, and also in Choshen Mishpatzim in Reish Lamed Daled in Sif Gimel. Two places. What's the halacha? The Rambam brings the halacha like this. A person sells treif. Says the Helik Rambam, a person sells treif, and you didn't know he's selling treif. You went to the butcher and he sold you a treif of food. Now you want to know, it's a mekach toyes, I want my money back. Comes again the Rambam, and he says it depends. If you bought non-kosher treif deraisa, Bain if you ate it, Bain if you didn't eat it, you can get your money back. That's a mekach tayis. I don't want the treif. Doesn't matter that I ate it. I got no enough from it because it's not what I would want to eat. And therefore, it's a mekach tayis. You get your money back. So he says, but Masha'ain came, let's say it was divrei sofer. I went to the store and I bought, chalavakum or something, and he sold it to me, and I thought it was kosher milk, right? And it's not. It's chalavakum. It's milk by a guy, not with any of the teir, goy gum or whatever. So now, I drank the milk. Says the Rambam, it depends. If you didn't drink the milk, you can give him back and say, I don't want this. I only drink kosher milk, even though it's only an Issa D'Rabbanan. But if you drank the milk, says the Rambam, im Achlan, so then you don't give back the money. Not a mekach tayis. All the achreinim, they ask, what's going on over here? Ben kachach is a mekach tayis. I don't want treif milk. I don't care treif derice. I don't care treif D'Rabbanan. What the world is the difference between if it's, I ate it already, I didn't eat it already, comes to gain the nesivis. That should take us back to our yeshiva days, Rabbi Isai. Famous nesivis in Reish Lamed Daled and Sivkot and Gimel, and Sivkot and Gimel. The nesivis says an unbelievable chiddush. He says, Be'isser D'Rabbanan, what were you over on? What are you over on when you're over on an Isser D'Rabbanan? You're over on Loisasa, you're not listening to the Chachamim. No, I'll give you an example. Your parents ask you to do something, you don't do it, you're over on Kippur Avein. You don't know, let's say your parents didn't tell you to do something, but you didn't know this and they wanted you to take out the garbage. So you didn't take out the garbage. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. What do you want? You did not listen to your parents. You didn't know that your parents wanted you to take out the garbage. Right? Same thing says in the Nesivis. The Rabbanan come along, you must listen to the Rabbanan. If you go against the Rabbanan, you're even like Sasa, you're min, small, you can't. If you moved Muksa, they said not to move Muksa, you're over, you did a mazid, the Rabbanan, you're out. You didn't listen to the Rabbanan. But Masha'ain came to the Nesivis, what happens? The Rabbanan said, don't drink this milk. I didn't know that this is the milk that the Rabbanan said not to drink. So what did you do? Chazal didn't come along and make an Isser Cheftza in the milk and say this milk. The Isser is not listening to us. So it's not in the Cheftza. So therefore, if the milk is still here, no, give it back because I don't want it. But if you drank the milk, so then what you do? In the Cheftza, it's not a treif of Cheftza. Elamai, you didn't listen to the Rabbanan. I did not listen to the Rabbanan because I didn't know that this was what they were speaking about. It says in the Nesivis, on an Isser, the Rabbanan, you don't need a kapara ki'ilu like over dami. This Rabbi Isai, the Marsham, the Bashana, and the Ein Aroyim, Eric Kapara Ischaf, he brings us down, Lalacha. Very simple, very simple. That's how the Marsham, the way we explained it, that explains the essence of Raisa in Klal Yud, in Dibra Maschavine, and of course, our Rabbi, Rav Chanan, the Korbis Aris, and Simon Ches, Eis Tesvav. He says, "Be'isr Rabbanan ain't a ma'isa mitzad atzma aser." The isser is not the ma'isa of the drinking of the milk. The isser is the zilzal and the chutzpah of not listening to the Rabbanan. If you did it b'shaygig, so then you didn't have any kavanah. You didn't know. You did not listen to the Rabbanan. And this is what it says in the Meshech Chachma, Bein in Dvar Midzayin Pasuk Yud Aleph, and Bein in Gerushin in Hilchos Gerushin Halacha Aleph. Perek Aleph Halacha Yud Zayin. Ef Shalom Shaygig Divrei Seif. It's not a ver klal. It's not an isser be'etzim. It's just leisasa shalavicha v'yagetcha. So I wasn't amazed. I did not listen to this Canaan. The Maisa, the Esfen Derais himself goes on to say that this is a Pella. The Or Sameach goes on to say it's a Pella. The Rav Chanan in two places, in Chestes Vav and in the Gittin Ois Vav, both places said this is a big Pella to say it. Pshuta Chazal came along and they asked the Chefta. Now the truth is, Rabbi Isai, there's a very big Pella on this Nesivus. Mamish a big Pella. Ramosha Nigris Moshe says in Archaim Chelik Aleph Siman Kupayin Hey, and the big kasha Rabbi Yisai in the Nesivus is what it says in Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Shabbos. In Hilchos Shabbos, it says, I'm a first in the Ramah. Let's see, I didn't prepare to talk about this. I think it's in Shin Lamed Daled at the end. Yeah, there it is. It didn't move. It says over here, in Ovar, the Chilul. What's it talking about? We're talking about somebody that puts out a fire on Shabbos. Putting out a fire on Shabbos, everybody said, we paskin is the Rabbanon. You shouldn't do it. It's a very strong Rabbanon. It says the Ramah, you have to have fasts of 40 days, and it's instead, He throws you at the book over here. He throws at you. Comes again the Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah says, "Afilu b'tchumim d'Rabbanan." He says even on tchumim d'Rabbanan, and even on tiltal ner dolik, even on moving muksa, tzarich l'sanas. Okay, he has kulas here. Maybe only have to be misana on the hav, but you need a kapara. Shaking their bunny, you need a kapara. Now the truth is that maybe you could be mechalik that Shabbos is much more chamer. The Surim of Shabbos we find in many places. Shabbos is much more. Maybe it's very very chamerdik. Maybe you could say more. Maybe there's a svara to say that the Isurim of Shabbos are more in the chefs. All difficult svaras. And Kipshuta everybody say you need to do tshuva even on a shaykik d'Rabbanan. Everybody say if you wouldn't need to do tshuva on a shaykik d'Rabbanan, we could open up a very interesting store. We're gonna open a store. We're gonna sell, let's say, we're gonna tell them we're gonna sell fake cheeseburgers, chicken cheeseburgers, and we're gonna buy fake cheese. Okay, with the Marsayans, we'll put on the packaging and whatever. Okay, and we'll take real chicken and real cheese. We're telling them it's not real chicken and real cheese. It's fake chicken or it's fake cheese. And but the Marasayan, no, we'll put up the signs and we'll put out the whatever to show them it's fake cheese and whatever. And we'll feed them real chicken and real cheese. And everybody's going to come into our store and they're going to eat chicken and cheese. And they're going to say, wow, it mamish tastes like the real thing. I mean, not that any of us know what it tastes like, but wow, it tastes like the real thing. And you know what? The Fida Nesivas, they're not over because they don't think they're doing anything wrong. They think they're eating not chicken and cheese. So and what are they being over under the Rabbanon? So they're not being over under their ICT chicken and cheese. So we'll open up a store like that. But we don't paskin like the Nesivas, and I don't know. I wonder if even the Nesivas would allow that. Maybe that's Lifnei Iver. How could you say it's Lifnei Iver? They weren't over on anything according to the Nesivas. But maybe nobody would want to do that. So maybe it's Lifnei Iver on him not putting in front of him something that nobody would want to do. Maybe. Akoponim Abayisai. That's the Maisa. That's I suppose we'll call that part one. Part two, Rabbi Isai, we'll make it a little bit faster, is the tshuva of Ben Adam L'Chaveiroi. That was Ben Adam L'Makom. We'll try to make it a little bit faster now. Question number one, do you have to ask Mechila? Do I have to ask Mechila? Or maybe it's enough that I know he was Michael. The Lashon of the Mishnah, it sounds like you have to ask. And the Mishnah Baba Kama Daftari Beis also, if you damage your friend, you're not nimchol ad sheyivakish mimene. You have to ask. And there was a whole story with Rav and the butcher. Everybody knows the story. The Bali Musa bring it down. And he came to get the butcher to ask from him mechila, because the butcher did something wrong to Rav, and it was Erev Yom Kippur, and Rav didn't want the butcher to have a bad din. So Rav went there to get the butcher to see him and to ask him mechila. The story goes that the butcher was very chutzpahdik, and the butcher died from the chutzpah to the pigiyah and Kavod HaTorah, which has to make us cringe when we think about the way that some people today talk about Kavod HaTorah, pachad chodim, but al kapanim. Why, the obvious kasha, why did Rav go to get the butcher? He seems to be willing to be Michael the butcher. So why is it that Rav had to go there to get the butcher to ask him mechila? Let him just be Michael the butcher and get the ganze Maisa. Maybe you could answer, it's not such a raya. First of all, Kavod HaTorah maybe is different. Maybe even if you hold that normally you don't have to ask mechila and it's enough that I know he's Michael, but maybe when it comes to Kavod HaTorah, there's different rules. Maybe you need to have the achna because you're a mevazet Torah and you have to go and beg mechila. Maybe, or maybe you could say that over here Rav realized that this person was constantly still being chutzpahdik about him. So maybe Rav was going to try to end the fight, that he should end the fight, perhaps. But Al Kopanim says the Pele Yoyitz in Erech Tshuva Dibra Maskal Ve'imi. He says you must ask mechila if you're Mitzayir, your friend. It's not enough that he's Michael. You have to ask, and you need the actual. The kaparas tali in the bizayin, the kaparas tali in the pain that you have to go and ask. You need to, it's very difficult to ask people mechila Rabbi Yisai. So maybe you need that. that in order to get the kapara, the uncomfortable of the uncomfortableness, the not geschmack, and maybe you need that in order to get your kapara. And the Peliyot says, "What's my raya from Rav?" He says, "Shmami no loisagi. Why isn't the Rav just didn't Michael the butcher? Why did he have to go there? Vice you needed that the person should get the achna of asking mechila, and this is why our say it's a pachad chayra. You have to ask mechila, and you can't be saying just on the tefillah zaka, and sometimes it's going to be very uncomfortable. But as I state in the Peliyotes, interesting ma'isa. It's a ma'isa with Naftali Amsterdam. Naftali Amsterdam used to come to Slobodka, and he would talk to Bachar. He was a Heilig Tzaddik, and he had a Hadras Panim. And there was a certain Bachar that wanted to ask of Naftali and Eitzah because he was a big masmid, this Bachar, and once in a while he would forget mincha through his asmada. He went to tell Rav Naftali. He was so nervous telling it to Rav Naftali. When he finally got the words out, Rav Naftali said to him, "You mean tefillah b'tziber, not missing a mincha?" So the Bachar was scared, and he said, "Yeah, tefillah b'tziber." And he told him how to do tikkun tshuva. Afterward, the Bachar went to the altar in Slobodka and told him that he lied to Rav Naftali, and he has such. What should he do? So the altar said, "Shakrin, Shakrin, you go right now and ask mechila from the tzaddik that you lied to him." The kid said the Bachar, with fear and trepidation, he went to Rav Naftali. He went to Naftali Amsterdam to ask him mechila. Right by the door was waiting another Bachar from Slobodka. The altar sent him. He told him, "Come home miyad." The altar said, "Don't go into Naftali's house." So he came home, and the altar told him, "I wanted you just to get the hachna and the pain of having to ask mechila, and now you got your kapara. But I didn't want you to have to actually be embarrassed." But Al Kapana Rabbi said the Peliyotes La'alocha says, and this is Taka. Ravitzla Blazer Taka, they bring down in the Taka in the Mayadim is Manor, Moshe Sturmer, Chelik Aleph, Simon and Dalit, Shavafur Shlema. He said that the kapara is tali in the Bizyainis, so therefore you have to ask Mechila, even if you know that he's going to say the Tefillah Zaka. Now, the Maisa, Rav Yashiv, Zechrein Levrochem, in the Oris, in Masech Yuma, Peizayinim, and Aleph, he says, Me'ikra din, Avad L'chatchili, you're supposed to ask Mechila. But Me'ikra din, if you know for sure that this person is Erlich and he's saying the Tefillah Zaka, and it's Borer that he's saying the Tefillah Zaka, and it's Borer that he means the Tefillah Zaka, so B'shas Tzchak, you could be Seimach on that, but it's definitely not L'chatchila. Number one. Number two, our Rebbe on his yard site, the Heilige Chavetz Chaim, he said tremendous Chiddush of the Heilige Chavetz Chaim in Klal Dalet Sifit Gimel. He seems to say that if Taka, that you have to ask Mechila, even if it's going to give pain to the person that you're asking Mechila from. You're going to tell him, I spoke Lashon Hara about you. You spoke about me? I can't believe it. You know, I thought you were my friend and this and that and all this thing. And mamish, the guy's going to have terrible pain. What gives you a right to be over on a nos dvarim by telling him that you spoke Lashon Hara about him? He's going to have terrible pain now. What gives you a right? Because you have to get a mechila. And a you need a mechila, but what could you do? You don't have a right to give him pain. The second you tell somebody you spoke Lashon Hara about him, he's going to have terrible pain. What gives you a right to do that? But the Chavetz Chaim says you're supposed to. And Rav Shlomo Zalman in the Hilchos Shleima, in Yom Kippur, Perek Gimel Sivav, he says, no way. And your friend doesn't know. And if you're going to tell him, he's going to have pain. Don't say it. No, but what do you want? The Chavetz Chaim is a Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi says like the Chavetz Chaim. They say a story that Rabbi Salanter, he didn't want to give, he's saying it's Rabbeinu Yoina. It's the Yerushalmi. The person that did something bad to somebody has to say, Sarachti lecha. I did something bad to you. But they say Rav Salanter didn't want to give askama to the Sefer Chavetz Chaim because of this. How do you have a right to give pain to another Yid? How do you have a right to give pain to another Yid because you need a mechila? So I don't know. It could be that maybe we can explain it based on the Mishabur himself in Tafresh Vav. It sounds like from the Mishabur in Tafresh Vav that you don't say, I spoke Lashon Hara about you, because that would maybe give him pain. Maybe you have to talk more klalistic. You have to tell the person, our lives are intertwined and whatnot. Over the year, I'm sure we do things to each other. I would like that you should give me a mechila. I'm sure I've done things. Maybe if you say it both in klali and that person, he says it, then even if he doesn't know, but usually half the time it's better he doesn't know and he'll be happy and you'll still get your mechila. Maybe that's all the Chavetz Chaim means. But to actually tell him exactly what you did, it's b'chlal not pashit. If you look in the Mishabura and Tafresh Vav, you'll see the way I said it. It sounds like, I'll read your Lashon. Sounds like you do it more in a kloliistic fashion. Shabru says, no, I don't see it. 1 second. Oh, ubekshas bakashas mechila. He's got in Gimel. Tzarich lefaret mashachat al says you have to say what you did. Im loy kishedesh chaveris bayish. Unless you know mizeh kisheyefaret achet. Don't be mefaret achet. As I know yefaret achet. That's the pshat. That's the pshat. Just don't specify. The next big shiloh by side is somebody
why
asks.
Is the period of chait? Why is period of chait a chelik of Tubin al Chaveroi?
No, Stam, he has to know what he's being moichel before.
Because he wasn't aware of the Begiya B'chal.
Yeah, but let's say let's say I'll just say to you, look, Rav Shlomo, who knows what could happen over the course of the year and this now. So now, me and you, we just want each other to be moichel each other. So Mamela, I'll be moichel you, you'll be moichel me. And if I don't know exactly what it was, I'm probably better off. That's what the Chofetz Chaim is saying. That's what you're supposed to do. Let's say somebody asks me mechila, and I tell him I'm moichel, but I'm not moichel in my leiv. So the Gilyonia Shas, he says an unbelievable chiddush in Kedushin Daf Mem Tesem and base. He says dvarim shebleiv and dvarim. That's where the sugi is. He says, and therefore, if somebody asks you mechila and you say yes, I'm moichel, it works because dvarim shebleiv ain't dvarim. This Abayisai is a pele gadol, mamash a pele gadol. Abayisai, these are dvarim that are totally in the leiv. You don't say dvarim shebleiv on something that's totally in the leiv. Everyone knows the Ranim Psachim by Bittel. That about it, we don't say on that dvarim shebleiv because here it's totally in the leiv. Totally in the leiv. Ali Shor in Chelik Beis in page 240, he says it for sure doesn't work if you were not moichel in your leiv and you're over in Gnevis Das. You're over in Gnevis Das. You told him you're moichel and he's not going to ask you for mechila. So you're being geisel from him the Kippur and Yom Kippur and the Maisa. I asked this child to Rav Yashiv and he said Tachlis. If you're not moichel b'leiv, you can't tell him you're moichel. Unbelievable. 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 The Orlatzian and Chelik Beis and Siman Tezvav and Sifit Gimel. He says, if a person has, some type of anger against somebody, he says, "Ein loy ma'areini moicha v'saleach." You can't say at night, "Ein loy ma'areini moicha v'saleach." If when you're angry at that, if there's, I guess you have to say, "Hareini moicha v'saleach" chutz from that person, which sounds very bad right before you go to sleep. And take a look. If you want to see in the Lev Eliyahu and Chelik Aleph in page 5 in the Akdam over there, they have a story over there, and in that story you see Bar. You see Bar that it's all totally in the Lev. Somebody did something very bad to Revelia. Is not going to be belev shalom. So therefore, Teilech achshav, and then come back to me, and then I'll be able to be moichel you. Try and give me 2 weeks, and I'll be able to be moichel you. You see that Revelia held that it has to be in the leif. Do you need mechila b'peh, or is it enough to say, what are you asking? First of all, Rabbi say anybody that asks you mechila, just say you're moichel. First of all, life's too short, and second of all, he wants to hear you say the words "I am moichel." Don't say, "Well, it's fine." No one wants to hear those words. He just wants to hear, yes, vada moichel you, and I'm sure that whatever it is, I'm beseder with it. But the Rabbeinu B'chai says it's more than that. In Breishis Perek Nun Pasuk Yitzayin, he says that was why they had to come back as Asar Ruge Malchus, because Yosef HaTzadik said, "What? You didn't do anything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did everything," and he didn't say the words "I'm moichel," and therefore they had to come back as Asar Ruge Malchus Ner Neroyas. Look in the Tshuvas on Hagis in Chelik Hey in Siman Kuf Pei Vav. Maybe he has a mahalach to get out of it. Ein amuchach yeshavar she Yosef amar lehem mitzidoi bevadai moichel. Shavei, because of that he was zoichel legedula. Aval on the agmas nefesh that you gave my father Yaakov, it won't help my mechila. So maybe that's why lo yomar mechoy lechem, because I can't be moichel on my father's tsar. But in the end of the day, Rabbeinu B'chai does say it. So therefore, anybody asking Mechil, say the words, "I am moichel." There's a Shiloh in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah, the Shulchan Aruch says, Avera sheben adam l'chavera, Yom Kippur is not mechaper ad shefaisena. Afila lehiknu ele b'dvarim, you have to do pious. Sarach lefayis, says the Mishnah Berurah, the gam b'zeh overall isra nos dvar. Okay. Says the Sharatzin in Tafresh Zayin Sivkat in Yud Gimel, very important. The Efsher Af Yom Kippur. Now we know, said the Shulchan Aruch, each year you can ask Avayna Shesvada if you would ask for kapara in the year before, right? You could still ask Tshuva again on Averis from previous years. Says the Mishnah Berurah Tafresh Zayin Sivkat in Yud Gimel, even on Ben Adam L'Chaveira, Ganav Gazel Kedaima, even though the person was Michael and you're Heshav the Gzela, but you could be Misvada L'Oilam on it. There's an aspect of Ben Adam Lamakom on stealing. So for that, you can ask Tshuva, you can ask Kapara every year in Yom Kippur. But the Sharatzin says something very interesting. He says, but let's say I hurt somebody. So once he gave me a mechila, so then it's done. It's wiped clean. And not only that, the Sharatzin says maybe even on the first Yom Kippur you don't have to because he was Mephias. Interesting. The Shabbat is a chilik between Geneva and causing pain to somebody. He wants to say that on Geneva, even after I wipe it clean with the person, I still have to cheshbon with Hashem. On Avera v'nos dvarim, once you wipe it clean with the person, it's gone. And therefore you might not even have to ask Mechila from Hashem on that. Which brings us to the last thing Rabbi Yisai, the big chiddush that, and you should think about it and work on it. The last thing Rabbi Yisai is the Birkei Yosef in Sivkat and Aleph. He says something which I hope and pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we don't paskin like. He says, if you didn't ask mechila from your friend and you needed mechila, you aren't mefayis chaverai, yesh misha kasav. If you weren't shoved from the averas of ben adam chaverai, gam avera shebeino lamakam eina miskaper. He says, if you didn't get mechila from your friend, so then also the ben adam lamakam you're not going to get, because that's the lashon in the Mishnah that ein yom kippur mechaper achi yifayis is chaverai. In other words, not only if you didn't mefayis your friend are you not going to get a kapara because of the averas you did to your friend, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm not talking to you until you get a clean slate from your friend. I'm out. I'm not talking to you. And the Birkei Yosef says the words that we all hope is true. I'm out. I don't think HaKadosh Baruch Hu likes that. I don't think so. He says, but what should I tell you? If you didn't ask your friend mechila, so there's the aspect of the avera ben adam lamakam on every time you do something wrong to one of his children also. So if you didn't ask mechila from your friend, so then on the ben adam lamakam aspect of that which you did to your friend, you're not going to get a mechila. No, halavai Rabbi Yisai, we'll use these days, we'll take the opportunity